Hey everybody, this is Marianne Mohanraj, author of A Feast of Serendib, and today we're going to be making Seeni Sambol. Seeni Sambol is probably my favorite of the Sri Lankan accompaniments. It's a caramelized onion that is spicy and tangy and sweet. Seeni is sugar, so it's like a sugar sambal side dish kind of thing. You use it as an accompaniment. You have it, it's a classic accompaniment for hoppers, string hoppers, all kinds of things you might have for breakfast. But I love it on everything. I like it with rice, I like it on sandwiches. If I were going to open a sandwich shop, I would make like a chicken sandwich with Seeni Sambol. It would be amazing and everybody would love it. If I was one condiment that I wish I could just walk into American grocery stores and buy, it would be Seeni Sambol. In part because it's very slow to make, because you cannot rush the caramelized onion process. So it's very simple. You chop some onions, and here Kevin has very kindly chopped 3 big onions, fairly large red onions. If you can get Bombay onion is what you would use in Sri Lanka, these sort of smaller reddish onions. Shallots would also be great for this. All of those are kind of like delicate and sweet, so those are really nice onions to use, but you can, I've certainly made them with yellow onion too, and that's also tasty. So he's chopped these up for me. I asked him to chop them finely. I would not say that they're
finely.
I know. Kavya is looking at this and she's like, that's not finely. I would agree. I would say this is chopped somewhat coarsely. So you could do it in a food processor if you wanted it fine. My mom would say that using food processor for onions crushes them too much, and you don't get quite the same flavors and the same texture, and she's certainly right, but I also think for everyday cooking, it's fine. So for me, I probably would have chopped this more, and I'm sort of tempted to like sit here and at least chop it a little bit more because it's so not as fine as I would like it to be. But one should not look a gift horse in the mouth, and he chopped for me, so I should be grateful, right? So I'm grateful, thank you, sweetie. So the other ingredients that are gonna go into this are a ½ cup of oil, very simple. Then some seasonings. We have cinnamon stick. If you can get Ceylon cinnamon, that's the soft stick cinnamon. It is, it'll like crumble in your hands. It's much softer than what Americans are used to using, the hard stick cinnamon. And it smells incredible. And if you can get a hold of it for curries, I recommend it. You're gonna need some cloves and some cardamom pods. If you can get fresh curry leaves, those are great to include. Usually you'd have tamarind. I'm actually out of tamarind paste at the moment. I'm using gamboge cream. Gamboge, also called gorica, is also known as Indian tamarind. It has a slightly different flavor, but pretty close, and I've actually never tried it in Seeni Sambol before, but it should work just fine. You'll need a little sugar for the Seeni, and finally Maldive fish. Now this is a optional ingredient. What it looks like are these very, very dried fish chips. Can you see that, Kavya? There we go. So, and these are kind of big, and you really want a powder. So I'm going to be taking them and pounding them a little bit in my mortar and pestle. So just sort of like that to get them to a more powdered state. So that's going to take a little while. You could do this if you don't want to do it in a mortar and pestle. You could get a food processor that you designate just for spices, and not a food processor, like a coffee grinder that you use just for spices, and grind spices in there, which I do for a lot. But be warned, Maldive fish is very pungent. It is, if you don't like fish, you can just leave it out of this, and Seeni Sambol will still be good. But I have to say, I think it's sort of missing something. Kevin doesn't like fish, so I usually set some aside without Maldive fish for him. But Maldive fish is like, it's like the little dried shrimp that we use. It's like Thai fish sauce. It's it gives this umami, this sort of extra burst of flavor that adds another dimension to the dish, and it's just much better. And so if you are vegetarian or you just don't like fish, other ways you can get umami are classically things that work are things like Japanese mushroom powder, which is made from dried shiitake mushrooms. So you could pulverize some of those and add a little bit of that to your dish. And now I'm going to forget what the other thing. There's a kind of a liquid smoke. That's it. So you can add a couple drops of liquid smoke. It's very strong, but that will also work a little bit. Like dried tomatoes have umami, but I think that would start changing the flavor profile of the dish probably more than you want to. So that's the intro. Next step is going to be heating the oil and sauteing the onions in oil for 30 minutes, stirring slowly. So I'll show you a little bit of that, but I'm not going to make you sit through the whole thing. All right, we'll be back. Okay, so hello. So we've put half a cup of vegetable oil in the pan, and we've added the onions, and I'm just going to add everything else in that we're going to need for this first step. So chili powder, a good amount. When I say chili powder, really, I mean cayenne, even though we call it chili powder, but don't confuse it with, say, the kind of chili powder that you might see in Tex-Mex chilies. This is straight up cayenne. You can make this hotter or less hot to your taste. As you saw, I put in about 2 spoons worth. Then you need 3 cardamom pods, 3 cloves, 1 cinnamon stick. And you can see it's very easy to break up the cinnamon stick with your fingers because it's a soft stick. There you go. And 1 stalk of curry leaves. Beautiful fresh curry leaves. And I'm going to actually put the stem in too because it's still tasty. All right, and now the next step is to stir slowly for 30 minutes on low. So I'm going to turn the heat down to low, and it's just going to chill out and do this for a long time. Because it's on low, you don't have to stir constantly, but you do have to keep an eye on it. So this is a great thing to do with the TV show right next to you, perhaps, and just stirring. Or if you have a teenager, this is a great task to assign to your teenager. She can watch a TV show while she is standing and stirring the onions for the Seeni Sambol. Okay, we'll be back in 30 minutes. So now we are 30 minutes into our slow caramelization process. I've also added at the beginning, you should add the Maldive fish powder along with the other spices if you're using it. So the only things you haven't added yet are the tamarind or gamboge, gorica, and sugar. So hold off on those. Those come in at the very end. As you can see, the onions are nicely softened. They're beautiful. If I were cooking them for a curry, this would be a great place to be adding in meat, etc., so on, that you're currying. But for Seeni Sambol, they've got to cook for another half hour. So roughly, caramelized onions just take a long time. And if you ever find a recipe on the internet that claims you can caramelize onions in 10 minutes, they are lying to you. They are big, fat, lying liars. Maybe you can do it in a pressure cooker, I don't know. But on the stovetop, it takes longer. So after 30 minutes, though, you can take a break from stirring, which is nice. And what I would do at this point is, this is actually very low, but on fairly low heat, essentially you want it to simmer. You're going to cover it, and you're going to leave it like that for 10 minutes. So what's going to happen is the moisture is going to come out of the onions in this 10 minutes, and when we come back, we'll take the lid off, and then we'll cook that moisture off. So we're going to take the lid off. Dun, dun, dun. All right, and so it's given off some moisture, and now not so much. We let it go for a little bit longer than we should have because we were distracted with other things, but that just means that the moisture has already cooked off some. There's still a little bit there, so I would now cook this maybe another 10 minutes or so, stirring until The oil, you can see it's starting to separate away from the onions and it's all glistening. So just do it a little bit longer and uncovered, and then we'll stir in the sugar and tamarindy stuff, and then we'll be done. So we'll be right back. All right, so we are at the last step. If you take a look, you can see that the oil has really started to separate out from the onions. So that's the point at which you know that the caramelizing is done and these are ready. They just need a little more flavoring. You would add salt to taste. I just added a teaspoon of salt. Sorry, I didn't show you that, but I did. You could add a little less or a little more as you like. And then we just need to add 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of tamarind. Which is a nice thick tangy paste, and what that gets you is this great combination. We had the spices, we had the heat of the cayenne, we had the salt, so you have spicy, salty, but then we added the sweetness of the sugar and then the tang from the tamarind. And that's always sort of one of the core elements of Sri Lankan food, is that we like to have a complex balance of sweet, salty, tangy, and if you like spice, spicy, to get our depth of flavor and fabulousness. So that's basically it. I'm gonna just keep stirring for a couple minutes till that tamarind is all blended in nicely. And then it's ready, and then we're gonna store it in a glass jar, and I'll put it in the fridge, and it'll keep for a few weeks in the fridge, although I only know that in theory because in practice I eat it all within a week, pretty much always. And I will be having it probably with rice and curry for dinner tonight, on sandwiches tomorrow. I really like it with pancakes because the sweetness of the pancakes kind of really pops with Seeni Sambol. If somebody were going to make me bomba toast for Mother's Day, a little spoonful of this on the side would not go amiss. And yeah, so deliciousness. And that is Seeni Sambol. Yay! Thanks everybody. See you soon.